It's not gonna happen to me, and then boom, it happens. Straight teeth and beautiful bites don't come without their risks. Here are 3 that may increase the potential for you developing bone and gum loss around your teeth. Our teeth are surrounded by bone. Bone helps the stability of the teeth. Increased stability means less floppy teeth. The bone around the tooth roots also supports the gum tissue. If you don't have bone, bone goes down, then the tissue has less support and will also or can also go down. And gum loss, gum recession, same thing, is usually at least a very unsightly appearance, especially if it's significant, and could lead to increased risk of sensitivity, tooth sensitivity. So we don't want bone or gum loss. That's the take-home message. So 3 risk factors for bone and gum loss. The first and foremost is periodontal disease, sickness of your bone and gums, or the periodontal structures surrounding your teeth. How do you get periodontal disease? Well, probably the biggest risk factor for developing this disease where you lose bone and tissue is through like a chronic inflammation as a result of chronic plaque buildup. If you leave food stuck in your mouth all the time, particularly high sugary content, processed foods, leads to inflammation of your gums. Inflammation of your gum tissue, as it relates to periodontal disease, is very not good. And you can avoid this. Eat the right things, not processed, not really sugary, and take care of your teeth. Get the stuff off your teeth. Don't leave food caked on there for very long. That's risk factor number 1. Risk factor number 2 for developing gum loss or bone loss relates to orthodontic treatment. Generally speaking, if you have healthy teeth, healthy bones, healthy gums, then your teeth should respond normally to tooth movement. You definitely don't want to get involved in tooth movement if you've got periodontal disease going on. So it's not a bad idea, especially for our adults out there, to have your dentist evaluate your bone and gum tissue health before moving forward with tooth movement. Let's say you're in it, your teeth are healthy. Here are 2 scenarios where you might consider the potential risk. First, let's say you have lots of crowding. One of the scariest things that people hear when they come to our office is, I think you should take out teeth. You at least need to consider the potential benefits. Teeth fit into this bone, right? From this outside portion to this inside portion. Let's say we're really jumbled up, or you try to line everything up, it has to spread out. And as you spread out, if you spread out towards the outer portion of the bone, or even the inner portion of the bone, your tooth can go through the bone. The bone doesn't just like keep you from going out. And remember what we just learned? What happens if the bone goes down? The tissue can go down too. Doing a procedure, what we call non-extraction, when you're extremely crowded, can increase your risk for bone loss and gum loss. Here's the second orthodontic scenario. Sometimes you go into the office, your top jawbone and your bottom jawbone, sometimes they don't fit together the right way. If at any point you have a jawbone discrepancy and your professional says, hey, you might want to consider surgery for the most predictable outcome, obviously, that is really super duper scary. There's some significant risks that are associated with that type of procedure. The alternative to that is some sort of camouflage treatment. You know, like when you go hunting or you're just trying to blend in. We use that term in orthodontics to represent that maybe we can make the teeth hide the actual bone problem. Move the teeth to make it look like you don't have a bone problem and your teeth fit together perfectly. That could be in this situation right here where you've got the excess overjet, and what you do is you take out the top premolars here and you tip those top teeth back, or vice versa on the bottom, you take out bottom teeth and then you try to tip those bottom teeth back. Or again, if you're narrow on the top and you're trying to make it wider to match around the bottom and you just tip those teeth way out, right? Any of those scenarios where you're trying to tip the teeth significant amount can also increase the risk of your bone loss and gum loss. For example, these bottom teeth down here, this area is particularly very thin bone, at least on the outside of these teeth right here. And when you tip these teeth back, that root can go through the bone, just like the top can go through the bone. Same thing on the top, right? You tip it back, it could lead to a root exposure up here. Millions of patients that have gone through this type of treatment with complete success. So it's not that everybody that does camouflage treatment will get bone or gum loss. You have so many people with great experiences in our office, outside our office, that go through those types of treatments and are just fine. But just something for you to consider. Okay, and the final risk factor for gum and bone loss that we're gonna talk about today that is related to orthodontics specifically. Many parents, especially, when they have their kids go through orthodontic treatment, they've got their teeth all straight and they're like, whew, that was a long 2-year process, maybe 3 years. And we finally got what we want, or we're ready to be finished. There's no way that I'm gonna let my child deal with the retainer that goes in and out of your mouth, because what if they don't wear it? So you're like, hey, let's go with the permanent retainer. And generally speaking, it's a very effective and safe tool to use to maintain your teeth straightness 24/7. You can check out our other videos as it relates to permanent retainers, how to put them in, or pros and cons of the different kinds of retainers, because they all have them. But one of the pros for a permanent retainer, what we call a fixed retainer or glued in retainer, is that it stays in 24/7. On rare occasions, you may have the opportunity to see what we call an active permanent retainer. And you might be like, it's not gonna happen to me, and then boom, it happens to you. We had a patient come in with very apparent bone and gum loss. See it there? I got the arrow pointing to it. You can see the gum levels next to those teeth, right? These front 4 teeth, and you got the 2 level that are pretty good, and then over here, wow, those are way down there. That is unfortunate. Like we just talked about at the beginning, the importance of gum and bone for the health of your teeth. To me, this is a serious issue and one that we want to address. And you're like, well, why is this related to orthodontics? Well, as it relates to retainers, the permanent retainers, like I said, on occasion, there is a risk that as part of the insertion process, when you put that retainer in, you glue it in, it develops an active force. The idea is that you rest it in there gently, passively, and then it's just sitting there and holding the teeth. Some of those wires are less rigid and some are more rigid. There's different types of permanent retainers, some that are just glued to 2 teeth with a wire here. Sometimes they're chains, sometimes they're like a spinning wire. And you try to rest it into the glue or onto the teeth and put the glue over the top of it so it's passive. It's just holding the teeth. But on occasion, there's 2 potential causes for the active force. One, when we're putting it in there and it gets bent, right, as you push it in or pull it in. Or 2, and I don't know how likely this is that during function, right, while you're eating, you chew on something so hard that it doesn't break it, but maybe it puts some force on the wire, and the wire receives that force, kind of stores it. And now as it uses the force, it moves the teeth. Anytime you have an active force, like with braces or aligners, a glued in retainer, if you have an active force, it could move the teeth. As we look at this patient, we've got the 2 parts there, right, with the recession, and then we look in the mouth and there's a glued in retainer. Now, is that for sure the reason why this happened? Hard to know, but we have seen people with gum recession, especially on these canines down here, sometimes maybe even the front teeth, they also have a glued in retainer. So it seems like there has been at least an association established between those 2 things. And in the orthodontic industry, you have some orthodontists who are like, you know what, no way, Jose, I'm not risking it, and they won't even use those permanent retainers. And then you have others that recognize that, you know what, these provide a great benefit, maybe it's worth the risk. And what we need to do is we need to watch it over time and make sure, right, patients need to be aware that if they have a permanent retainer, they need to make sure that their teeth are staying in position, that they're not developing gum recession. If they start noticing tooth movement or gum recession, they may need to review with an orthodontist or their dentist. You could remove it, rebuild it, and replace it, just to try and remove any active forces that might be in there. 2, you remove it, and instead of putting something permanent back in, you use a removable retainer, like a clear one, or the traditional Holly type retainer. For some of you out there already, you may have gum recession or bone loss in that area, and you also have a permanent retainer in. What can you do? I would suggest that you go see your dentist, a periodontist, and your orthodontist, a little team there, and you make some decisions about what are our options to move forward. You might consider the potential benefit of removing the bonded retainer, putting some braces back on, and trying to tip the root back into the thickness of the bone. As you do this, you may notice some natural healing that occurs in that area as the tooth gets into that better position, more healthy physiologic position. Tack on that some grafting, bone and gum tissue grafting, and then voila, you have some pretty healthy teeth again. Worst case scenario, the bone loss is so serious that that tooth is considered hopeless, and you may need to consider removal at some point if it becomes a major issue for you, sensitivity or pain, or just the overall site cleaning, things like that, and replace it with some sort of restoration implant. Obviously not what we want to do. So let's avoid it by paying close attention to our bonded retainers over time. It's easy to get casual about them. We kind of forget, the importance of watching what we eat, as well as just making sure that our teeth stay healthy. You can help do this by maintaining your dental visits every 6 months, or if you ever have concerns that you're noticing as you look in your mouth, go see your orthodontist. Hey, how's the retainer doing? How do the teeth look? Does anything look way out of the ordinary? If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more content like this, subscribe to the channel. Share this video with a friend. And don't forget, watch out for periodontal disease. Keep your teeth clean, watch what you eat, and finally, permanent retainers. They can be excellent, absolutely excellent retainers. Take good care of them, watch them to try to reduce your risk for gum and bone loss associated with active permanent retainers. That's all I've got, just a little PFOing so you know where you're going. Packard out.